Jerome Luxala, it's good to have you back with us. You've had quite a lot to say lately, including in the Parliament, about debit and credit surcharges, including your words that they're, quote, a rort on customers who increasingly, of course, pay with a card. Curious at the outset, do you use these cards or are you like Bob Catter, committed to cash?
Look, I think, let me just say from the outset, I think cash should always be part of our payment system. It's important. It's an analogue way of doing it. But I, like 75% of all Australians, prefer the ease and safety and attractiveness of digital payments. They're convenient, they're safe, means you're not having to carry a wad of cash around you. And we also know that these are the most efficient forms of payment. But Canstar have released analysis which shows that it's costing Australians $4 billion a year in surcharges. And I think that in 2024, that doesn't really stack up anymore. So I've been asking a few questions.
Figure. No, you certainly have. It's a big figure, and I want to break that down with you in a moment. But again, a general one. What makes you certain that people really care about this? I mean, a lot of people like you and me, Jerome Luxala, are happily tapping away at present. Is that the market speaking and sort of giving permission to this, or are they just being ignorant as consumers?
Oh, well, I think it's been bubbling away for a few years now, Greg. I don't think we've been surcharged to quite the quantum we are right now. And I think as cost of living has hit small businesses and inflation and sort of general costs have risen for small businesses, we're seeing more and more having to pass these costs on. And I think the more that people use these, you would imagine that there'd be a economy of scale here where the cost of them would perhaps come down, but that's certainly not what we're seeing when we pay for a coffee or a sandwich or for goods and services, particularly from small businesses who have had no option but to pass these on. And it's adding up. And again, we live in this sort of reverse world where non-digital forms of payment attract no fee, but the digital forms, which we know save businesses money, it definitely saves the banks money, they're being passed on. And I just don't think that stacks up anymore. Right. I'm old enough to remember when sending a single SMS used to cost 25 cents per message. Now, obviously, of course, the cost of sending an SMS is basically zero, part of your monthly fee. That same innovation and revolution needs to happen with digital payments.
All right, we'll talk in a regulatory sense about how we might get there. But of the $4 billion in charges that you've mentioned here and elsewhere, how much of that do you say can't be justified, is indefensible and should be removed?
Well, I think particularly when it's your own money, right? So in Australia, we have a really strong and robust domestic payment system called EFTPOS. There's also another payment system that's sort of come online very recently called the National Payments Platform, which is OSCO and that sort of account-to-account instant transfer. I think we're unique in the world where we have this low-cost EFTPOS or debit system. I think that, charging small businesses and therefore consumers high rates on that domestic payment method is very much unjustified. We know that big card providers in some instances pay big banks a commission of sort for selling products, and there's percentages that sort of go around there, and that's what I'm going to try and explore and understand, to seeing, do those arrangements stop innovation in this area? Because I think all the technology exists for next to zero cost or actually fee-free payments. But there's no incentive to get there, and that's what I'm hoping a couple of days before the banks at the end of this week, and hopefully through some reviews that the RBA are running, that we can get there, so that either the cost is so low that businesses are happy to incorporate it, or that we move to a system where the savings that Digitals presents to businesses and to the banks actually manifests itself in basically fee-free payments.
Okay, so what about the heavy hand of government regulation to drive it towards that end? Do you see a European-style ban as a solution in Australia? Do you advocate for that?
Well, we need to address the actual costs here, because just a simple ban will mean that small businesses in particular will have to bear the burden of this, and that's not something that that I want to do as a small business, as someone that's worked in small business my whole life. But we do have legislation that's been introduced into the House of Representatives to strengthen the powers that the RBA has in payment services regulation. But you know, like some legislation of the government, it's been a bit delayed. What the RBA has done is, in response, is announced that they're going to do a payment surcharges review earlier than originally scheduled. So what I'm doing is, you know, using my position on the House Economics Committee to try and get a campaign going where you know, small businesses and consumers can write submissions and be part of this review that the RBA will be running in the next in the coming months, using the hearings on Thursday and Friday to highlight this as an issue. I think we'll sort of get the ball rolling, and hopefully we can get some movement in this space.
No doubt you'll be pursuing that, including at the hearings this week. Associated question, what should happen with card-only businesses, those who will not accept cash, therefore the customer does not have an effective choice, even if they wanted to go down the cash route?
Well, so they currently have to have an all-inclusive price, but that all-inclusive price can include a surcharge. And this is sort of back to my earlier comments. I understand why small businesses are passing on these costs. These costs are way too high for small businesses. The one I used to run, we had a couple of retail outlets. We were spending over $1,000 a month on merchant fees and surcharges, and we made a decision then not to pass them on. But there are some who just can't do that. I want to address the actual cost and drive down the cost of these digital payments, because I don't think, I mean, and we'll find out over the next couple of days, but you know, sending $2 via digital payment and sending $2,000 via digital payment, surely there's a flat cost there. But obviously surcharging between the two are very, very different if you're based on a percentage. So I kind of understand why surcharges exist for Visa, MasterCard and Amex. They're a product that people buy into. But for EFTPOS and for your own money, for debit, I think there just needs to be a fee-free payment option, given that 75% of us use digital payments and do so for various reasons.
As you say here, Jerome, you're trying to ground this debate in a few facts, and we don't have the costs as they relate to the financial institutions so far. We have the all-up figure of about $4 billion a year. What gives you confidence that the RBA is going to have visibility on that? I imagine this is a highly prized commercial secret by the banks. Will the RBA be able to look through that?
Oh, well, the RBA are very involved in the payment system and payment network, so they're the right people to undertake this review. They've made it clear on the public record that the legislation before Parliament will help reform the payment system. Maybe, you know, this campaign will help that legislation get moving in the House and then through the Senate, so the RBA can get the extra powers that they would be happy to get.
Will that happen, just to interrupt you there, will that happen in the remaining life of this Parliament?
Well, I certainly hope so, but that's sort of discussions I'll be having with the Treasurer, and I know it's one of these bills that's sort of grouped together with a whole other heap of financial and Treasury reforms. So that's definitely something I'll be raising with the Treasurer and the Finance Minister to see what we can do to get that Payment Services Regulation Act moving. But you know, thankfully the RBA are aware of Australians' disdain for some of these surcharges. They're bringing forward their review, and I would encourage as many people as possible, small businesses, consumers, big business, to get involved in that review and get us towards a fee-free digital payment option at the checkout.
All right, well, that is noted, Jerome Laxale, and we'll also look out for further testimony from the big four banks when you and the House Economics Committee sit later in the week. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon, Jerome Laxale.
Thanks, Greg.